Hey folks, Al Puglisi Trains. Tonight we have a video on the Great Scale Model Train Show. It's coming up in Timonium, Maryland. Not this weekend, but next weekend. It is an incredible show for the model railroader, and I have a very special guest tonight with Howard Zane and Scott Nichols. And we're going to talk about the show and why it is so important that you consider going and seeing it. Here we go. Okay, folks, to the left-hand side, we have Howard Zane. Hello, Howard.
Hey, Al.
And we have Scott Nichols. And Scott, you're the general manager of the show?
General manager of the Great Scale Model Train Show. How you doing, Al?
Good. I've known these guys for years. I've been going to that show since the 70s, and we'll dive into more of the history of the show later. But Scott, tell us exactly what you do and what the show is all about in a nutshell, if you can.
Well, I mean, the Great Scale Model Train Show has been around for over 40 years now.
Right.
We're positioned as one of the premier model train shows in the Mid-Atlantic region. We've been doing it at the Timonium Fairgrounds since the mid-'80s. We're in a 178,000 square foot facility. Typically, we have about 700 tables of vendors and usually on average 20 to 25 operating layouts, covering everything from HO to N to Z and G and everything in between.
Wow. I mean, it is a tremendous train show. And Howard, you started that show back, you and Ken started it.
Ken Young. Yeah.
About when? Back in
1982. Originally, I was going to start it in 1980. I had purchased land on Route 29 in Burtonsville, and I was going to build a strand steel building for the show, and 80,000 square feet. And I got word that they were going to reroute 29.
Oh,
so
goodness.
I sold the land and made a few dollars on it. And it took us about 2 years before we decided to rent our facility.
Okay.
But we first started at the Ellicott City Armory.
Right.
And that was right after Greenberg started his show in '76. We started ours in '82. It was a good facility, but it was small. It was 7,000 square feet. And it just wasn't going to work because right away we knew we had a problem because we expected 300 people at the first show. It was a show about scale model railroading, nothing to do with tin plate. Matter of fact, we didn't allow tin plate. And until the day I sold the show.
Right.
We did we did allow high rail, but not the actual Lionel stuff, the tin plate. But now it's gone to that too.
Right.
Because everything's transitioning. Things change.
But this show, in its current state, it caters directly to the model railroad community.
Yeah, but it will. Yeah, Al.
It does, yeah.
It does. Yeah, watch that fence there.
Right. I've got that. And how big is the facility now? You say it's in the Timonium Fairgrounds.
It's in the Cow Palace at the Timonium Fairgrounds, so it's 178,000 square feet. So it's roughly about 3.5 acres of trains and everything train related.
And with the 700 tables, folks, there's people selling stuff. There are, like Scott said earlier, enormous model railroad clubs like the 4 counties.
We have 4 counties. The Reading Historical and Technical Society comes. We have the Western Maryland Historical Society. Those are, HO-based clubs.
Right.
We have the Baltimore American Flyer guys that come. We have some Lionel layouts. So quite a few in-scale. Northern Virginia N-Track comes. Band track.
Right.
So we pretty much, we even have a guy that has a G-scale setup that he brings and runs there. So we pretty much cover the whole gamut in terms of scale. Only thing I don't think I haven't seen yet is a little small Z-scale layout.
Right. And these layouts are just incredible, folks. They are must-see. And with so many hobby stores that are closing, or it's just not as many hobby stores around now, I just think it is so important that these train shows keep going. And you guys do the show, what, 4 times a year?
3 times a year, yeah. But typically we do it in October, February, and April.
Okay.
Matter of fact, our April show is coming up next week, the 29th and 30th.
Right. And if you decide you want to sell something or get a table, you can still get tables, I understand.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I'll have a link on the web, on this page here as to who you can go to inquire about getting tables for it. Now, let's talk about the vendors. We have vendors coming from all over the United States or up and down the East Coast.
Typically, I mean, a lot of our vendors are from the East Coast here. We have some guys from as far south as South Carolina. We draw a lot of vendors out of the Northeast. We have some guys out to the West, like Kentucky, Illinois, that area. Right. We even have a vendor that comes down from Canada periodically too.
Wow. And a lot of these vendors, I mean, there's huge tool vendors if you need tools for the hobby.
We do pretty much everything. I mean, there's aside from the trains, there's T-shirts and videos, Railroadiana. If you're into old
Right.
lanterns and railroad antiques, we have some of that. A lot of DCC.
Right.
HO and N is probably the predominant scales that make up most of the show because they're the two most popular ones.
Right.
We have hobby shops that come and
Right.
and set up, and then we have folks that are just cleaning out their collection out of their basement or what have you. So it's new stuff, it's used stuff. If there's things that you're looking for that are long out of production, it's a good place to try to find them. So something for everyone.
And Howard, you were one of the biggest brass dealers in the country, and this is one of the primary. Well, you were back in the day, and that's
I was a brass dealer. I can't say that.
okay. Well,
matter of fact, I think Scott over here should do a clinic on articulation. He's doing very well. Speaks great.
but the show, I mean, you would display for years at the. That's where I met you. I was 17. I saw your table at the show. You had all your structures. You had all these brass trains. It just blew my mind. I'm like, oh my God, this is just incredible. And folks, it's still like that. It's just an incredible
You got to
thing.
remember, I was a part owner of the show, so I had 20 tables
Right,
at the show.
right.
So,
But the show still has that scope. I mean, there's just so much there.
Brass not so much anymore. Unfortunately, just in the past couple years, there's two brass dealers that we've lost.
to COVID.
No, just to old age or medical issues
Right.
or something like that. And brass is not as prevalent as it used to be. I mean, there's still a following for it. We still have, I guess there's two guys that sell brass that still come to the show, but
Good.
the heyday of brass was in the 90s, and most shows you're not finding not even one piece of brass at the show. So we still take pride in the fact that even if there's only 2 or 3 vendors at our show that are selling it, at least we still have representation
Right.
for the brass.
And I find that walking through those 700 tables, like you were saying earlier, how people are thinning their collections. I can't tell you how many incredible deals I've come across of brass just hidden. Just table here. Oh my God, here's brass. So
Sure.
it's everything is at this show, folks. And let's talk about. You also said it's got to have clinics too.
We do clinics, and that's one of the things that we really pride ourselves on at our show, because a lot of train shows that I go to don't have clinics.
Right.
Typically what we'll do, we'll have one on DCC. So, now that DCC has become so prevalent in the hobby, it's still kind of a big mystery to a lot of people. So we have one of the guys on our show staff that does a clinic, I guess 3 times a day on an introduction to DCC. So he really kind of dumbs it down, makes it real simple to understand. We have a couple vendors that sell DCC related supplies and all that, so you can take the knowledge that you learned from the clinic and now go out and shop for some of that stuff and know what you're looking for. We do a scenery clinic.
Right, the scenery clinics are incredible.
And those are good. I guess that's pretty much it. DCC and scenery for the most part. We were going to do one time about rail fanning.
Right.
Some people are interested in that, and that's a whole another kind of thing that I
Right.
don't even know anything about really, but a lot of science and a lot of tech to that too. So we've had that clinic suggested to us as something that folks might be interested in. So we're always interested in having people that have a talent that want to come and share it with our show attendees.
Right.
And we welcome them to get in contact with us, give us ideas about what we should be doing with the clinics. And if they want to come and lead a clinic, by all means, please come and do so. Anything that we can do to educate people at the show and get them interested in things and all that, we're all for.
And you guys in the past have had movies too, train movies, I think, showing.
We haven't done that in a while, but yeah, some people had an interest in seeing old train movies or slideshows about a particular prototype or something like that. And we still do those periodically. I don't think we've done one in a while, but pretty much like I said, if folks out there in YouTube land have
Right.
certain things that they'd like to see at our show, we're all ears and we'd love to implement it.
And then there's the Craftsman Kit Corner. I think that's where
We do kind of a small show within the show,
Right.
Called the Craftsman Courtyard, and these are going to be the guys that do all the custom wood structures and a lot of the scratch built structures and things of that nature, because that's kind of a dying part of this hobby.
Right.
Just like brass. I mean, people in the hobby nowadays are looking for things ready to run and like an already built structure that they can just plan on their layout. And you know
Right.
what? That's fine. If you want to be engaged and active in the hobby, it's nice that there's manufacturers making that stuff that encourage people to get involved. But for the
Right.
ones that really want to, exercise their artistic abilities and have a challenge, that's where all that Craftsman stuff comes in. They're kits that take a lot of thought and a lot of practice to put together. But, at the end of the day, too, I can't think of anything more rewarding than scratch building something and learning how to do that and build something that you make your own.
And I've walked back there. Last show I think I was at, where the guys in the Craftsman Kit Corner actually had like little mini kind of like seminars,
Yeah.
little informal things where, look, I'm building my kit, or my wife just built this, or my girlfriend just built that.
Sure. Yeah, they'll do little like seminars. They're not quite to the same level as maybe some of the clinics that
Right.
we're doing, but there's little seminars and symposiums that they put together there, for people to come back and visit the courtyard.
And folks, the clubs, I know that so many people have come to me and said, hey, I joined this model railroad club, I joined that model railroad club. You get to speak to the clubs, like 4 counties. They have, 20, 30 members, whatever, maybe more. They're always looking for members. All the other clubs, I'm sure, are looking for members. It's great camaraderie. You get to meet the clubs. You can talk about joining the club. Whether you're new at it or whether you don't have space for a layout, there's so many clubs looking for members too.
Sure, and that's a great component of the show too, because it gets you connected with like-minded people.
Right.
And you can get involved with some of these clubs, and maybe you're just starting out and you need some guidance. What better thing to do than join a club and be exposed to all these people with different skill sets.
Right.
And learning how to participate in the hobby and how to do it.
It's a great thing. Well, I think anything else, you guys, Howard, can you think of anything? I'm out of questions.
25 words or less. That's so much. I could go on for hours. You just got to ask the question.
No, folks, I mean, I'm trying to, again, I can't tell you how important train shows are, I think, to the hobby now. Let's talk about, all right, where the hobby's going. Because it's
unfortunately, where the hobby's going, and Howard has mentioned this before with all his travels across the country. How many hobby shops did you estimate were?
When I was a corporate pilot, I used to, in my flight bag, I would carry a model railroad or a Craftsman magazine.
Right.
And anytime I was laying over at a small airport, I'd actually grab the vehicle from the fixed base operator or take a cab and go into town and visit the hobby shop. And there were a lot of them. Today, not so. It's just, but the hobby is not going to die. It's going to grow. And I'll tell you why. Because since the beginning of time, if something floated, flew, or just moved, there was always some son of a bitch who was going to build a model of it.
That would make a great.
That's never going to change.
Right, but that would make a great T-shirt. I mean, that's a great saying.
Years ago, I was in one of these antique type stuff stores up in Provincetown, Massachusetts, and I found a scale model that was built probably during the Civil War, maybe just after the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
Of a 440 American type steam locomotive. It was so well done. It was obviously built by the mechanics in the railroad shops, and I purchased it.
Wow.
And I sold it a long time ago, but it was beautiful. And I'm sure when 1829, when we first started railroading in this country, I'm sure there was somebody right away building a model, the best friend of Charleston or the John Bull or whatever.
Right.
It's not going to die.
Yeah.
It'll change, but it's not going to die.
And a word about the hobby shops though is there's not too many left, at least not around here. And we
are home to the finest, 2 of the finest hobby shops in the country right here.
I would agree.
And that's Tommy Gilbert's and Mainline Hobby Supply.
And Red Rose.
And we are so lucky to have these shops.
We are. And then we have a newer shop called White Rose Hobby.
White Rose. Right Rose.
I have
New York.
But Fred works there.
And we do have MB Klein here in Baltimore, but they're really not a walk-in hobby shop anymore.
Right.
They're almost exclusively internet order. But we're still fortunate enough to have some wonderful shops around. So in addition to what we're trying to do with the shows and and so on, is you also have some local shops here within an hour to an hour and a half drive of the fairgrounds.
Right.
That can give you guidance too. So, and I think part of what we do at the show too is to also try to support those local hobby shops as much as we can. I mean, we only do the show 3 times a year, and those are 3 weekends to come in and learn about things and all that. But having these great shops around to supplement that
Right.
is wonderful. So I encourage everyone in YouTube land here, if you're within a reasonable distance of the Baltimore area, is to go visit those shops and support them as much as you can. I mean, anybody can click on a button and order something off of eBay.
Right. Right.
Go see your local shop, even if it costs you a couple dollars more. You're supporting a local business. You're getting guidance and support. If you have a question, you pick up the phone, call them, they'll answer it.
Right.
There's no substitute for that. I
Right.
mean, I still order things mail order, sure. There's a convenience factor, but there's nothing like walking in the store and they greet you by name and they know you and know what you're into and all that sort of thing. And that's worth something.
I've been in shops years ago, and how dare you come in here? It's just like,
Good God.
I mean, it's so run the gamut with good operators and bad operators.
Right. Well, and another thing that before I even forget is, folks, if you're coming from out of the area, Baltimore is railroad heaven. You got the B&O Railroad Museum. It's one of the arguably best railroad museums in the United States. That is a stone's throw away from the show.
And then don't forget, up outside of Lancaster and Strasburg,
Right.
we have the Strasburg Railroad.
Right. Spectacular.
The Pennsylvania Railroad Museum
Right.
is right there in Strasburg too, which is wonderful to visit.
And
I
that's
would say
close.
that's no more than maybe an hour and 10 minutes from where the show's located.
Plus, you
Right.
can ride the choo-choo.
Yeah, you can ride the choo-choo.
That's right. You can ride through inner city, but it's like, folks, I mean, so if you can't make it down for this show next weekend, plan to come to another show and plan to see the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Museum, the Strasburg Railroad, all these just fantastic train.
And we have some good places to rail fan around Baltimore too, or not too far from Baltimore. You can go out towards Ellicott City on the old B&O main line, which is now CSX. There's some great spots to watch trains there. You can go down, and we've got Norfolk Southern that runs through here too in some places. So there's some great rail fanning
Don't
opportunities
forget
as
my
well.
basement.
And then you've got Howard's Basement, of course.
Yes, yes.
You forgot one thing that is so important, and that is the white elephant table.
Oh, yes,
yeah.
yes, the white elephant table.
That's something else that's kind of a component of our show that nobody else does. It's a white elephant table, and what that means is you can bring in your unwanted items, and
Right.
instead of getting the table and trying to sell them yourself, dump them off on our white elephant table. Our guys will sell those items for you while
Right.
you walk around the show and do shopping and all that sort of thing, for a 15% commission. And
Right.
they handle the transaction. You do your shopping. At the end of the day, when you're ready to go, you just drop by, and whatever items have sold, you
And it's
get
a
a wad of cash handed to you.
it's a huge, it's a huge white elephant table.
About
folks.
20 tables of merchandise. So yeah, it's well stocked. I recommend you definitely come on Saturday and come early, because a lot of
Right.
our attendees, especially the ones that have been coming to the show
Go
for a while,
straight to that
make a
elephant table.
beeline for that.
Right.
And that's located in the middle of our South Hall.
Right, I do that. As a matter of fact, I'm guilty. I'll make a beeline straight to that, folks. There's killer deals there, and then we're going to have custom model railroads. I've got a lot of his structures on my layout. He's going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of specialty vendors. Like I said, we have some regular hobby shops that come in to our shows that are just kind of bringing an extension of their store inventory.
Right.
We have some guys that strictly just do shows and sell either estates or, like in our case, we sell estates collections, and we also have new stuff that we order from some of the manufacturers. So you can find a little bit of everything. We have guys that sell nothing but tools. We have
Right.
a couple of book dealers. So if books are your thing, we have a lot of the railroad books, Morning Sun and that sort of thing.
Videos, books, clothes.
Yeah, videos, T-shirts, you name it, anything railroad related. We have a couple of railroadiana dealers too that sell old railroad antiques. So like I said, there's a little bit of something for everybody. If you got little ones, bring your little ones to the show.
Right.
We have some Thomas the Train dealers too. So there's something even for the little kiddos when they come in. So, we really take pride on, focusing the show on the scale modeler, but at the same time also making it a family-friendly event too.
Well,
So,
don't forget the design of the show. You always have wide aisles, which is very important.
yeah.
I've been to shows with 6-foot aisles with the vendor sitting in the aisle, and you just can't get by. I can remember one show. There was some water buffalo in front of me. This guy was like a hippopotamus. I couldn't get by. I couldn't get over to get by him to get this deal. It was fabulous, and somebody else grabbed it.
Yeah, folks. Again, guys, thanks for talking about the show. I'll be posting. I'll be going to the show with the channel, and I'll be making some videos. But
yeah, I look forward to that. We'll do some kind of like Johnny on the spot things as the show's going on next weekend. So folks that can't make it can kind of get an idea of what it's all about, and also search YouTube, because we have some other folks that come to the show that typically will shoot videos of some of the operating layouts. I know there was one gentleman that did some interviews with some of our vendors at the show back in February. So there's a lot of content that's out there on YouTube, but especially yours, Al. I like what you're doing too, and we're really happy to partner with you on supporting your channel, and anything we can do to help that grow too.
Well, I appreciate it. And then now the next show after this one will be in June, right?
October.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, we've discontinued doing the summer show now, so April. The next one I think is, don't quote me on the dates, but it's like October 15th and 16th, folks, maybe right there in the middle. That
show, folks. I mean, this show coming up is great. But
yeah, spring's typically one of our smaller shows, but it's still well attended.
It's a great show. But if you can't make it to this show, you have to figure out a way to go to the October show.
Yeah, October's usually good, and then of course our show in February, which is the first weekend of February, is kind of the granddaddy of all of them. That's the one that usually has the most vendors, the most operating layouts, and we can get sometimes as many as 4,000 to 5,000 people that weekend for that February show. So it's very well attended too.
So if you guys can't make it next weekend, don't fret. The show goes on.
The show goes on.
Well, you guys, thanks so much for taking the time. And if you like what you see, please hit the subscribe button. You guys, thanks so much for giving me your input.